And again, thank you all for coming. And I really want to introduce our two guests here, and really grateful that they're here. And before further ado, I really want Michael and Erin to give us a short introduction about yourself before we go on to the questions.
Sounds good. Erin, would you like to go first?
Sure, happy to. So, hi everyone, my name is Erin Radler. I am a alum from the class of 2016. I currently am a senior technical product manager at Amazon in our Alexa smart home business. I've been there now about almost 5 years since graduation, and I also interned at Amazon as well. I've done rotations in our Kindle, AWS, and Alexa businesses. So I had a variety of experiences and I really enjoyed it. And a lot of that stems from the experiences that I had while at Tepper. I was in the entrepreneurship track while at Tepper, and also participated in a lot of clubs from B&T to Consulting Club, as well as our Beer Meisters Club. So happy to help answer any questions you guys have today to make you more informed about your decision to go to Tepper, as well as kind of your career opportunities after you leave within the technology industry.
Fantastic. So I'm Michael Hermiston. I am from the class of 2008. Originally from Washington State, made my way to Southern California after undergraduate, spent a number of years there, then made my way to Pittsburgh for my MBA, graduated in 2008, and moved to the Bay Area to work for Google. I also interned there, so there's a theme between Erin and I, interning for the same company that we work at today. There are some benefits to that. Let's see, I'm currently director of scaled operations for our specialty ads products. So things like, the ads that show up in apps or analytics product, YouTube display and things like that, for basically, all of our, pretty much like all of our ads customers. Now I've only been doing this role for, I guess, a year and a half. Prior to that, I spent the majority of my career in the consumer context, working from everything from payments to Google Fi, as I represent here, to even basic things like account recovery and policy enforcement. So quite a range of things over the years, but it's been really exciting. At the point that I entered Google in 2008, I didn't have to do much for my career to kind of blossom because change was happening. We were on quite a growth trajectory at the time, and opportunities just kind of came, and you just had to be selective about what you did. So I'm excited to share kind of some specifics about that. While at Tepper, similar to Erin, participated in a lot of different things, employee and venture capital club, business and technology club. I was the first non-Schwartz fellow to be in the Schwartz program. Somehow I finagled my way into that program, which was fun because I enjoyed that aspect and probably what spurred my interest in kind of the early stage of Google, which was a lot of entrepreneurial like thinking and growth, trial and error, and things like that.
Thank you so much, Michael and Erin. And I really want to start with the questions right now. We already have some questions coming in the Q&A section, so that's really exciting. So the first question that I have for both of you actually is, we can see that you both joined the tech industry after your graduation. So I really wanted to know more about your experience. Did you have a lot of tech background, and what made you really interested in the tech industry?
Sure, I can go first. So I have a technical background. I originally I did my undergrad at Northwestern. I originally went to study chemical engineering. I thought I wanted to go into biotech and genetics. And through my curriculum there, I kind of discovered I loved the product development process more, like interdisciplinary, cross-functional, rather than kind of the chemistry of it itself. And so I pursued a manufacturing and design engineering degree, so interdisciplinary across mechanical and industrial engineering. I graduated in 2010. So when I was looking for jobs in 2009, it was a little limiting in what was available. And so I actually went into working in tech consulting at Accenture. And so it was a great experience working in consulting. For folks that are still unsure about what they want to do, tech consulting is a great way to kind of get into that space. What I found is in a lot of large scale implementation programs that I worked on there, I was really interested in the definition stage and kind of seeding new ideas and new businesses. And so I actually left Accenture to go work at a startup, which kind of put me on my path to then going to Tepper and staying within product management. And I've now found within my career at Amazon, a lot of the things that I'm drawn to and what I'm working on right now is kind of new new product concept, new business development. So building something from the ground up. And I think the entrepreneurship track and like the tech leadership and strategy track at Tepper right now are great development grounds for getting that experience to do this exact type of work that I'm doing at Amazon, and what sounds like what Michael was doing at Google as well.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Michael, can we share your experience a little bit?
No, did we lose him?
I think we might have lost him. So yeah,
I'm back now.
all right,
Just
awesome.
so you know, sorry, you did lose me. Yes. Want me to go now? I'm sure there was a segue while I was gone.
Please go ahead.
Sorry about that. Let's see. To be honest, I was less like industry focused. I was like pretty focused on just getting to Google by the time I knew what Google was, and kind of escaping the industry I was in. I was also technology focused, but in HR consulting, so a technical practice in the HR industry, and I expressed a lot of interest as I was doing my job more in the business side, like why are we acquiring this company? Like why are we moving into this space and that. While in parallel, I guess, for a while having fun at my job, but at some point I just felt like, I don't want to retire a project manager. I got to do something bigger. I'm more interested in kind of the macro things happening than just one implementation after another. So that's what spurred me to go to Tepper. But when I went into Tepper, I was focused on like becoming a CIO or CTO. Like I went, at the time there was a technology leadership track, but almost like within a week, I decided to abandon that. So it was really, it helped me as part of my pitch to get into the school. But I think given what I was seeing and the conversations that I was having with students, we were going through some exercises about framing your brand, like who are you? And I just quickly discovered that, being a CTO probably wasn't what was going to excite me in the long run. I wanted to work in a technology company, but more on the business side. I explored a number of different things, brand management, product management, general management. And the general management is what really stuck at Google at the time. They were on this rapid growth curve. They were looking for people managers. I had managed people prior to coming to Tepper. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door there. Before I came to Tepper, I didn't even have a Gmail address, and only through kind of talking to people did it get me excited and interested. And then you saw kind of everything that was going on there. And it spurred my interest even more. It was coveted, right? So like, why not go after the coveted thing at the time? I applied, I happened to get an interview, and kind of the rest is history. So that was really my motivation for getting into the industry that I'm in. I'm happy that I'm here. I've, in the 13 years I've been at Google, I'm sure that I've experienced quite a lot more than had I gone to maybe a more stable company. We are stabilizing, but in the early stages, it was, like trial and error all the time, right? Out with a product and then it gets deprecated, and then something new. And the ads business kept growing to help fuel a lot of the innovations and all that kind of stuff. While I was an intern, they launched Street View, right? Street View feels like it's been around forever, but like we were still in that phase of launching, and you'd go to main campus and get t-shirts for the launch parties and all that. And just the energy there was really exciting, right? So that's really what drew me there, less about like the technical focus, like the nature of the job, the company that I was supporting. I had an opportunity in the consumer side of the business where I thought all of the action was happening, right? It's certainly much more exciting than I think the ad side, which I'm on now. But at the time, like launching consumer products and, eventually getting up to billions of users and all that kind of thing was like really appealing and enticing, and, something I couldn't say no to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. So we are having a lot of questions coming in. One of the questions that's quite common that I can see is, so this is a question for Erin mostly. What are the resources that Tepper provide you in terms of networking that you use during your Amazon recruitment process?
So in terms of networking, so I think we have a fairly robust and responsive alumni network. So I've found both as an alumni myself now and when I was in school that reaching out to someone who works at a company they're really interested, just to have a coffee chat to learn more about the company culture or the roles or opportunities there, people are generally open to having at least a 30-minute chat, as long as you're respectful of their time, you come prepared, and you're asking like insightful, detailed questions. Over the course of Tepper's recent history, like the different interactions between different companies, both from startups to larger companies like Amazon or Google, kind of changes over time in terms of their engagement through office hours, case competitions, sponsored programs on campus. So it's going to be highly variable depending on who you talk to, what their on-campus experience was. For me, we had an Amazon case competition and we had office hours when I came on site or came to campus. And so I got to meet a lot of people through that process and learn a lot more about the company culture and just their way of doing product development. And so I've built relationships through that process that helps to kind of sponsor me and mentor me through the internship or the interview and internship process. I would say a lot of my peers when I was in school also were really interested in going to smaller and medium-sized companies. They'd rather be a big fish in a small pond. And so there's also now a much more robust kind of startup network that comes on campus as well, that kind of sponsors programs, that gets engaged with students. And so I would say those companies as well are very excited to hear from students, just to talk about entrepreneurial experience, as well as kind of bring people on board for the summer for internships. So I would say, like with any career, like for career development and also for this role specifically, like you have to be proactive and you have to be kind of almost courageous to be able to reach out and kind of ask for what you want, because no one else is just going to hand it to you. You have to do the work to think about what it is that you want for your career and your interests, and then just go after it. The worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to say no, and maybe they'll pass you off to somebody else, but you got to be persistent and you got to go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I kind of had the similar experience when I was recruiting. I think the first initial block of reaching out to an unknown person might feel a little difficult, but once you start sending those emails and when you get the response, it becomes really easy. And I'm really glad to have the amazing Tepper network who really helped me during my recruitment process. I'm sure Seth has the same experience as well. So a question for Michael now. So during your MBA, what are the skills that you have gained through your Tepper MBA that you've used in your corporate life, which you think that you wouldn't have otherwise?
Oh, geez. Going into general management, I would say I'm going to be honest, like you don't use a lot of, I would say maybe the technical tools and things like that. I didn't find that I used a lot of the, R and all this kind of stuff. Like I didn't have to do that. And I certainly don't do that today. But I think the most important thing is understanding the concepts, knowing what questions to ask, what guidance to offer, when to challenge people, when to guide. Like a lot of that just laid the foundation across almost all of the courses. For me, because I went into people management, pretty straight away, and, getting anything done in a highly matrixed organization takes a lot of stakeholder management, influence, and all sorts of other things, like the organizational behavior classes, the team building classes, business acting. One of my favorites, got an A+. And other things. I think it's a lot of the softer stuff that helps you be successful in a big organization where you are going to something like, general management. I would, presume even product management. If it's anything like Google, like you don't have a direct team, like you're influencing lots of people to do things that maybe they don't want to do, or it's not a priority for them to get the thing that you need to get done. Right. Like business communication, a lot of those things. I would say are the most practical things that I took out of it. I think it was good to get refreshed because I was a business systems undergrad, so I had a lot of the probabilities and statistics and finance courses and things like that already. So it was a good refresher, just so that I can speak the language. Because chances are you're coming in with a lot of other people that have these skills too, and ultimately you're probably going to have to interact with other functions. I interact with finance, marketing, all sorts of folks all the time, and it's helpful to have that that foundation. One of the more practical things, and I know this is a question on the kind of preceded questions, was the most practical career advice that I got, and it was from Dr. Robert Kelly's class. I don't know if he still does, How to Be a Star at Work. But there's also a book that's equivalent. Aaron, it may have been a course that was available or not when you were there, but one of the things that I took away from that book was like the concept of the critical path, and how kind of important that was to have in my mind as I was kind of, working on different engagements and pondering opportunities and things like that. Because the critical path, whether it's in the organization or at the company, just gives you a lot of extra opportunities that you don't have to put a lot of effort into. You get automatic executive attention, you get automatic funding, you get automatic prioritization and a lot of other things that just come naturally that can accelerate your career purely by being smart about which job or project you pick, right? So, there's a practical thing that I learned in business school that's like probably more so than knowing, a refresher on probabilities, is just how to navigate kind of the internal environment and pick the right jobs that can be a career accelerator.
Yeah, I would definitely like plus one to that. I think the Accelerate Leadership Center and like communications coaching, which isn't something that I leveraged a ton of when I was in school, and something that I keep, looking to leverage more now as an alumni, is a great resource for perfecting your communication skills and learning how to manage those relationships across teams and across functions. Within product management, my current program and past programs I've been on, I'm regularly collaborating with 40 plus teams and then all of their management chains. Like earlier today, I was presenting a strategy doc to like 7 different VPs and an assortment of directors. And you can't be an effective leader and you can't effectively drive your career to get those opportunities on the critical path unless you're an effective communicator and you can understand how to, articulate your thoughts and your ideas, and also how to influence others. And so more than any of the technical details or kind of the functional expertise you can learn, which a lot of which you will learn on the job, no matter where you go and in the industry you're in, being able to hit the ground running and build trust with your management team and your stakeholders through effective communication, to me, is like one of the most critical skills that you can really hone in on while you're in business school, and practicing that with your peers and your classmates as well.
Yeah, and just one follow on to what Aaron said, I would say that one of the bigger gaps in developing individuals within the organization and fresh grads coming in is communication, and the ability to build effective presentations, like tailoring to your audience, like understanding your audience, email communications, and all of that. So I would, really strongly encourage, like really trying to develop those skills, building some techniques and other things, so that, it doesn't matter how good you are at math or something. If you can't communicate and convince somebody to move your project forward or give you funding, it doesn't matter.
Right. And as you progress in your career as well, eventually you'll be the person managing the team that's doing the analysis and doing that detailed functional work. Kind of your role as a senior business leader is to be able to drive the strategy, kind of delegate and manage that portfolio of work, and also continue to progress. But you're never going to always be responsible for like the minutia of every detail. So it's more important for you to be able to, see the bigger picture, communicate, and drive relationships with people in the organization. But I know we've got a ton of like follow-ons to this question, so I don't know if you want to move on to another question now.
That's totally fine. These are amazing insights, and I'm pretty sure everybody wants to listen to them more and more. So it's totally fine. So so I think those are really helpful, and that will definitely help both me and Steph during our time here. And so another question that we're getting a lot is, many of our attendees are really interested to like look in the PM and PMT roles at both Amazon and Google. So this is a question for both of you. I'll ask Erin to go first. Is how important is it to have a tech background, or how much of a tech background do you require for an MBA grad if they're looking for a PM role at Amazon?
Sure. So I can speak to Amazon specifically, and then also kind of maybe the industry more broadly. So at Amazon, we have multiple types of product management roles that don't all require to have a technical background. And as I said, through most roles that you'll learn a lot of the required technical knowledge that you need in the job itself. Because even at Amazon, so a product manager and consumer who's working on maybe detail page features for product listings, and someone who's working in AWS, working in Alexa or in a Go store, like the technology that you need to understand is so fundamentally different that what you really need to be able to do is have like the core fundamentals of being able to dive deep, have a lot of ownership, regurgitate all the Amazon LPs. I'm just going to stop that right now, but like, or leadership principles, sorry. But, being able to really break down the problem and do kind of systems analysis. So understand how all these different pieces fit together. And that is a fundamental skill you need, regardless if it's for a technical product or if it's for, maybe a business problem that you're trying to solve. And so we have, non-technical product management, we have technical product management, and then we also have a role called technical product management for external services, which is like our AWS product management, where you're building, APIs and services that other businesses are using to build their applications and core services on. So it has different kind of aspects to it. And so it's definitely not a gate to get into that role to have a technical background. And if you look at the industry more broadly, every company kind of defines what a PM scope is a little bit differently. So like a product manager at one company could be focused on technical software development, and another could be focused on marketing, another could be focused on actually managing the P&L for a product line. Some places it's all three of those things. And so I think what's more important is understanding like the culture of the company that you're going into, kind of the expectations of that role, and whether it's the right fit for what you're trying to get in your career. So the question on like, what's the best career advice you got? Like my thought that I had was like your career is a marathon and not a sprint. Like I think when you go to business school, a lot of people are so focused on getting the perfect job right out of school that they lose sight of the bigger picture. And thinking about the incrementality of your career over the next several decades, you have a long way to go to achieve like what you're interested in over time. So thinking about like what is the right incremental step for you to take based off your current experience, based off your current interests, and then using that to get the right PM role, whether it's a non-technical PM role or it's not even a PM role at a company that you're really interested in the products in, and then you can rotate it to a PM role later on. There's multiple different paths you can take to get to the same outcome. And so don't feel pressured just because your peers are all hyped up by the PM title to think that's the right thing that you have to do right away. You can get there eventually and still be just as successful in the long term.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm pretty sure that's really helpful. Michael, can you share a little bit about the same issue from a Google's perspective? Because from the outside, it always feels like Google is always into tech, and you have to have a very strong tech background. But I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
Well, it's largely the case. Just to be direct, so I'm sharing from the perspective of working with a lot of PMs over time, and really understanding that flow and helping people on my team navigate. This goes back to Erin's point. It's not always a direct line, right? There's a lot of people that come into my organization. Broadly, it's GTech, which is a support and product operations organization that product managers heavily rely on. So there's a lot of interface and interaction, right? So I've had teams that we call individuals that are product support managers that are basically buddies with PMs that help them gather insights and make sure that their customers and users are getting support and all that. So they build up really strong relationships and an understanding of the space and all of that helps to, if you're motivated and you're willing to put in the work in addition to the relationships, can be a path over to PM if you don't have a traditional CS background or software engineering background. Now, if you don't take that path, so that was a little bit of context with a little bit of a teaser of kind of a possible path. I would say the most traditional PM comes in with a software engineering undergrad and MBA, and they come in as a PM, or they're undergraduate. They go into our product manager, what do we call it? Our associate product manager program out of undergraduate. They spend a couple years and then pop out a PM. But those individuals usually come out of undergraduate with computer science or software engineering that just skew more towards wanting to be a PM rather than a software developer. Yes, if you go in the interview, you're going to interview with PMs. You also have to do a software engineering interview at Google. So you have to know at least pretty well, how to write some code and to answer some pretty deep technical questions. How might you do, sorts and, other things, right, that would be common in a software engineering interview. It's not a full-blown software engineering interview, but you definitely interview with software engineers. Now, just because you don't have a CS or a SWE doesn't mean that you're going to be eliminated. You could have the technical chops because you've developed them yourself. You've done things on the side. So it's more about demonstrating your competency and your ability to to be able to engage with an engineer, right? To know that the guidance that you're giving or the strategy that you're defining is going to be supported by an engineering team. And I would say similar to Aaron and the Amazon experience, while we don't have unique titles that are technical or business or these types of things, there are more technically oriented PMs. Like if you're going over to work in cloud, for example, you're probably going to be more technical than maybe a product that's trying to monetize, right? Where yes, you have to have a technical background, but we want you to skew a little bit more towards like business understanding and all of that, right? Hence the MBA starts to play a role. But because it's, all like a common community, you have to keep some consistency in terms of like the expectations of the hires and all of that. The way that PMs work also at Google is they're mobile, right? Once you're in the PM on the PM ladder, you can go from one product area without having to re-interview for the PM. You interview for the team. So they need to make sure that they've got consistent standards so that a PM can go anywhere theoretically. So yeah, I hate to kind of be the bearer of bad news. I know this is a common path that people want to pursue at Google. But just being upfront that unless you have a technical background or the ability to demonstrate the technical, the capacity, that might not be the quickest route to PM. You may want to just get into Google. There's PGM roles that work in the engineering organization. There's TPGM roles if you want to be a technical program manager that works more on release management and that kind of thing. There's also, like I said, product support manager roles or ops roles that get you adjacent to PM, where you can build relationships and credibility over time, understand that business, maybe take a CS course on the side, or even get coaching. Like I've had a lot of people on my teams that build mentor relationships with PMs, and they coach to help you get through the interviews, right? You can get sponsors and other types of things. So I would not be disappointed if maybe you can't get in the front door. The back door's always an option too, if you're willing to take a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would say what I've seen, of my peers that graduated with me in 2016, like we had probably 20 some people that like all went to Amazon together in Seattle. And it was a mix of people in product management, program management, and RLDP programs. I would say like 90% of us are all now product managers. Like they came in through like the retail path, working in category management or vendor management, and they work really closely with like their technical teams through the consumer side, and then rotated into another role, or they came in through program management and then worked really closely with a product management or technical team, and then rotated into a product management role. And there's also a number of my peers that, couldn't get an interview for product management at like a large tech company while they were in school because they didn't have tech or relevant industry or PM experience on their resume. So it was hard for them to get on the interview list. And so they took a job at another company, maybe a smaller company doing PM or doing something else in the tech industry. And then they got hired like a year or two later. You were able to get some experience under your belt, prove that you have the skill set, and then still work at, an Amazon or a Google or a Facebook or any of those large tech companies or any other industry that's hiring product management. So again, like there's multiple paths to getting to that end career goal if that's something that you're really interested in doing. But I think being really critical and understanding what the role of a product manager is rather than just kind of like the buzzy title, because it's now become almost like a catch-all title in some regards for some companies, and just making sure that it's the right thing for you and what you're interested in working on is super critical before you go down that path.
Yeah, that's an amazing insight. And thank you so much, both of you, for your honest feedback. I'm pretty sure it'll be really helpful for people who will probably apply to a job in Google or Amazon in the coming months. So another question that I have for Michael is, obviously it's been nearly 13 years here in Google. You're quite a veteran there, and I think you've had around 7 to 8 roles. So we're really interested to know, like, how do you progress through different roles? Like, was it natural to leave one position to another, or did you actively, just focus on a particular area that you want to progress towards?
Yeah, I have a somewhat unconventional, quote unquote, career. Here's a fun fact. The job that I'm currently in right now, is the first job where I actually chose the job and my manager at Google. When I came in as an intern, you get assigned a person and a job. When I came in after, I was assigned a manager and a job. And then my manager leaves, I get a new manager. We reorg, and, I get a new manager and a new job. So, I mean, I had some say along the way, but I didn't interview for these jobs or whatever. It was like the organization like shifted. Something new came up. I happened to be like here's an example of an accidental kind of like step into a critical path. My first job, I did policy enforcement, like and abuse operations, which in 2008 like was like wild, wild west. It happened to be mostly on social products. You may or may not remember a product called Orkut. It was very popular in Brazil and India. Had we actually invested in it, it probably would have been the Facebook, and Facebook wouldn't have come around, but the company wasn't interested. But we still kept it alive because it made some money. It was kind of like cost neutral. But then Google Plus came about because there was some threat of Facebook. So the company got all riled up about, needing to kind of defend that space or to kind of compete in that arena. So then Google Plus shows up. It's a social product. Michael, go and work with them and see what they need or whatever. And then it became the biggest thing in the company at the time. We had a bonus multiplier based on, how many people were contributing to the social efforts. Almost immediately, I got weekly reviews with the SVP about what the customer sentiment was. Like all these things just happened. I rode that up for a little bit, and then we started to launch hardware products, and we thought that we could just continue supporting, hardware products that cost hundreds of dollars with our traditional methods, which, at our scale initially started off as help centers and communities. Well, that doesn't work super well when somebody's paying $800 for a phone and it doesn't work. So then we had to scramble to get a call center. That forced a reorg. We then started to invest heavily in call centers. So I pivoted over to that path because that was the important thing for our organization at the time. Once again, it got me a lot of visibility. So it was a lot of circumstance and good luck, I guess. Now, the journey wasn't all beautiful, right? Like it was stressful. I had bad managers. I had good times, bad times, but kind of going back to Aaron's point earlier that it's a journey, it's not a straight line. It's like zigzaggy, and that's how you need to anticipate or expect your career. But through all those opportunities, helped me get promoted, and then getting promoted gave me access to new opportunities. I got visibility up to our chief business officer for some time on some random project I got assigned. Then it eventually, like my collected experience moved me into a position in my last role before coming into my current role, which is what we call a product vertical leader. So I was basically the business unit owner of our cloud, mostly G Suite products, communications products, and photos in the GTech organization that I'm in, like the responsible party to the VPN product, basically. We just happen to be a functional organization because I knew all of the different, I was like the archive of the organization because I had managed help centers, I'd done communities, I built out call centers, I've been responsible for the enablement functions, like all sorts of, random things that I had done, given the opportunities, the growth, the reorgs and all that kind of stuff. And despite, having multiple managers and even bad experiences, like those are all good experiences to have because it helps you understand how to manage different personalities, different profiles of people, different interests, and all sorts of other things that then just kind of accumulate over time. And then, now I've popped over to the ad side. I figured that I've avoided the moneymaker long enough. I should come over and experience it and see what it's like. But that's kind of the summary of how it was. It wasn't, I wouldn't go out to the job boards and apply to jobs. It was like looking at opportunities within the organization and, falling down, dusting myself off, getting back up. And I think resilience helped me out a lot along the way. And like, here I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's fascinating to hear about your experience.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's unconventional because if even talking within Google, most people don't just kind of sit in their chair and, have the world change around them and then get opportunities. Folks typically are much more intentional with their careers. I'm not, right? I'm not super career oriented. I'm more like, if I've got purpose and I'm happy, right, and I'm progressing, which is part of my happy, right, then I'm cool with that. Especially like at the stage I am in my career, like I have really no aspirations to like leave Google and go be a COO anymore. I just want to like make an impact and be rewarded for it, and work with really cool people and support cool programs and initiatives throughout the company, whether it's business oriented or supporting our underrepresented communities and that kind of thing, so that folks can have hopefully some success as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like thinking about career philosophies and how people approach it. And like one of the things that it's kind of come up in discussion recently, during COVID and work from home, is people reassessing their relative priorities for balancing career and their personal lives and their families, and any non-professional aspirations, so to speak. And so I think the way that I've approached my career within Amazon thus far, like I rotated from AWS to Alexa after my first year because I realized that I didn't really enjoy what I was working on. I mean, bringing AWS on S3 is a massive product, massive scale, a lot of influence, but it wasn't making me happy. And so, rotating over to Alexa gave me opportunity to work on building something from the ground up. And I also had I think I've had 7 different managers within my current role, like shuffle the group in, out, new director, new VP, like strategy changes. But if you're enjoy what you're working on and you become knowledgeable, like career development's kind of a combination of being intentional and being at the right place at the right time and having the support of the right people. And so that's why that relationship development is so important, because people will pull you along and they'll pull you within their careers as they get success. They want to bring you with them. And so like my current role, I'm 3 times up within smart home working on new initiatives, and I got it because of all of that thrash of the rework, and I have so much knowledge that I was the right person to drive this new program, and I wouldn't have gotten it otherwise if I hadn't weathered maybe some unconventional or undesirable circumstances. But you also have to be intentional enough about your career to know what it is that you want when the opportunity presents itself. So like one exercise that we do every year is you do like your career development planning, and you review that with your manager, and then you kind of check in every quarter to make sure, like, what do I want to do next? Do I want to develop new skills? Do I want to push for a promotion? Do I want to try a new functional area? And just having that checkpoint in with yourself of understanding, like, do I want to do a career push right now, or do I want to focus maybe more on some other aspects of my life, is super important, because then when the opportunity arises, you'll know whether it's the right time for you to make that jump or whether it's time for you to maybe hold back and wait a bit and see what's coming later down the pipeline.
It's funny that you talk about this. So there was also some questions about the work-life balances, and you touched a little on that. So just how is that work-life balance working out at Amazon? Like how many hours a week you have to work? Do you have to work on the weekends? Some of the questions that a lot of students have at this point of time.
I will say work-life balance is a very individual thing. So some people love working like 60 hours a week, and that makes them super happy. And that is their balance of like how much they want to invest in their career versus their personal time. So I can't say like at a corporate level or a company level, like what balance is like. It varies by person, by function, by team, by time of year. Like with any job, you have, big pushes where you're trying to get like a big release or product or strategy out the door. And so you're gonna be working a lot more. And there's times where you're in planning mode, things a little bit quieter. I mean, I would say, if I had to think about it at the Amazon level, Amazon through, COVID and work from home, I think has been really respectful of people's, balance that they need in their lives, and, maintaining their families, maintaining what they need to, be productive at their jobs, but also be happy and balanced at home, and maintaining, their physical and mental health. And so I've, been really happy in my experience over this past year and a half of being able to, work from home, be able to, manage some semblance of, working 9 to 5, and then having, my after hours just for me, while also still working on like really senior level strategies. It's definitely possible. And so that's kind of what I strive for, but other people may have a different experience just based off of what they need to do within their current business at that point in time, or whatever makes them happy. So I don't know, Michael, how are things been for you over at Google?
Um, honestly, like as you were, talking about your experience at Amazon, I would say that it resonated a lot with me. We talk about well-being a lot. We try to do like overarching programs a lot. A lot of individuals like want the company to like mandate like work hours and that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that, right? There's so much like variability in like the urgency of things, the intensity. Like if you're in trust and safety at Google during the political season, you're probably working more than, somebody that's working on a stable product. And that's just the nature of the business, right? If you're in holiday planning for hardware, or if you're in, the busy season for ads, you're doing your sales pushes, right? So you're going to have a lot of variability. I would say that on a whole, there's no expectation that people, work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? But there's no mandate that says that you have to or you don't have to. Like if you choose to work 40 hours a week and you can get all your work done better than the person next to you that has to work 60, then good for you, right? Like you're there's a lot more recognition for working smarter than harder, I would say, at Google. You do not get rewarded in performance management for working a lot. You get rewarded for your impact. And if it really comes down to like, what does it take to kind of have that impact? And it's going to vary by individual, by role, by who your manager is. Like, what is the culture within your individual organization? Like Google, Amazon, what you're like almost 1 million people. If you include everybody, like we're 130,000 full-timers, like there's a lot of subcultures all over the place that drive like, kind of different expectations. But I would say, on the whole, Google's, like, I would say probably the average has skewed down over time as we've been focusing on well-being, especially during COVID and work from home, where we've been very, similar to Amazon, very respectful of individual circumstances, cutting a lot of people slack if they're struggling with like childcare and other things, like a lot of benefit of the doubt. But then there's other people that are, still working their tails off, right? Because that's what they want to do. And nobody's going to punish them for it. I've had many conversations about that with individuals that are like, well, I'm going to slow down, but I don't want other people to work fast because they're going to get promoted quicker than me. And I'm like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? But I would say, yeah, the general, like my manager now never emails on the weekends, but my manager before did. You just got to work with it.
Yeah. And I would say the one thing I found at Amazon, and I've heard from peers that work at other companies as well within tech, is, in respecting people's personal boundaries more in their different circumstances, there has been better structure in managing schedule and accountability for communication, especially as we think about these global companies. So it's not uncommon for me to talk with peers in Europe or Asia, or trying to coordinate meetings with them. And so my schedule can be highly irregular. For like I'll have a 7 a.m. meeting or a 10 p.m. meeting, and I'll take like a 2 or 3 hour break in the middle of my day just to make sure that I still have time for myself. And people respect that, and they don't expect me to respond. I have coworkers also that have young children. So the only time they can respond to things is at maybe midnight or 1 a.m. when they're finishing their work. But like, that's the choices that they've made to like manage their schedule and also manage their family life. And, we're all doing the best that we can. And what I think will happen is, even when we return back to the office, that will continue, because I've found that, it's definitely producing a more respectful and inclusive, work environment. And I think it's something that people are interested in maintaining going forward, more broadly across the tech industry.
Yeah, I get, plus one to how we're thinking about things at Google and what the expectations are going to be. Even as we go back into the office in September, we're piloting a 3-2 program where, 3 days in the office, 2 days off. Google's still like committed to an office-based culture. Like they've been very firm about that. Investing, I forget what they said, like $7 billion on real estate, this year, I think, across the United States, right? Like, they're all in on that, but offering some flexibility. And even on top of that, there's going to be kind of behind closed doors flexibility for unique situations. And I'll also say, just to kind of reinforce the point that in these large companies, there's a lot of different environments and needs, right? in my former role, all of my stakeholders were in the US. I had 8 to 5 kind of hours, right? With some plus or minus because I'm in Boulder and I had to work with the Bay Area. My team now is 100% outside the United States. I'm the only one on my team in the US. Well, my schedule is going to shift a little bit, right? I'm going to do more 7 a.m. meetings. I'm going to do more 10 p.m. meetings than I had. And this kind of factors into your happiness, aspect of your role. If you don't like it, there's probably other opportunities around the company that can get you, maybe a different environment that's maybe, less urgent, less fast paced, located in a particular region that's more convenient to your time zones and things like that. So there's a lot of flexibility, but you have to be, I guess, the one in charge of that, like being intentional about making that decision around what makes you happy, and also gives you, at least in my perspective, the other aspect of that 2x2 is purpose. Like, are you having an impact? Are you able to, why do you get up in the morning? Why do you go to work in the first place? Right? You should have some purpose, I think.
I know I have like 10 minutes left. Do you want to do like rapid fire to get through some of the remaining questions?
Yeah, I actually have like one final question before we wrap it up. So basically, most of the attendees here are prospective MBA students, and they will be looking for different jobs and different roles. So most of them would be looking at technology roles. So being in a position, what are the advice that you can give to them? Like, what are the skills that they should acquire right now before they start their MBA?
Michael, do you want to go first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, you kind of going back to, our conversation about, what were the most practical skills and things that we learned in school. Probably also that I didn't invest enough in, and they just happened to materialize that way, are a lot of the softer things, right? Organizational behavior, communications, written, oral, like kind of perfecting some of that stuff. Um, going into technical roles, you probably don't need to like deepen your technical knowledge like too much, unless there's a specific area that you want to go in and focus on, that maybe you need to like brush up in a particular area so that you can be, at least have that functional expertise. But it's a lot of the, again, being, I think, effective in any role that I think MBAs ultimately want to get into is going to really lean on your leadership skills, your stakeholder management skills, like your executive presence, right? How do you engage with and impress the people that are making decisions about your performance, how much money you get for your project, how many resources you get for your project. I mean, the worst thing that I've seen happen to people is like show up poorly, and an executive, they're like elephants. They have long memories of individuals, and it's really hard to recover from. I've just seen like time and time again, people, like, they're super great people and all of that, but when it comes time to shine, it doesn't really, materialize, and you're just kind of, there watching. And so I think, I know it sounds like I don't want to focus too much on presence, because I think we used to do that like very heavily at Google. And presence, the way that we originally thought of presence, doesn't allow for variety, right? And diversity of different personalities and stuff. So we've moved away from that, but it still doesn't get away from the importance of being able to effectively communicate in some way, whether it's over email, writing a doc, being succinct, right? Getting to the bottom line, like, why does this matter? And that. So, I would focus, at least try to get a lot of practice and support. So case competitions and other things where, yeah, like you go through case competitions, they're like, you get 4 slides, right? And being, precious with that real estate, and some other things. But yeah, that's what I would encourage you to do. And it's got to be tailored to where you want to go. But again, to Aaron's point, like, where you want to get to might not be the first place that you go, right? So just be thoughtful about that too, and that you may actually acquire a lot of the critical skills in that first job, not necessarily at business school. So I'll pass it over to you, Aaron. I'm just going to keep rambling.
It reminded me what you were talking of. I went to a women in product conference in San Francisco 2 years ago, I think. And one of the speakers was talking about career development. And actually she put together this I forget if I think it was like a video or a book, but it was like how to product manage your career. And it was like working backwards from like what you want the product of your career to be and thinking about all of the requirements and the inputs into that and how to get yourself to that final point. Which I think is a really interesting way of thinking about it. It's also a really interesting thought exercise if you want to go into management, or how to break a problem down from the desired outcome. So I think, if you're interested in going into technology, like always, or technology industry, always remember that like the tech industry, more broadly speaking, is a multifaceted kind of sector. Like tech itself can be, retail, consumer tech, it can be ad tech, fintech, med tech. Like there's so many different avenues for you to go in, as also like functional roles within that space, that just saying you want to work in tech is a really broad statement. And so I think, if you think about what it is that you eventually want to accomplish, and you think about the skills that you have now, think about the ways in which you can accomplish that. If you work in finance now, maybe look for a finance role at a tech company, and then you can rotate internally into product management or program management or something else. If you have deep industry expertise in like healthcare or something, maybe look at like a health tech company and leverage your industry knowledge to get your foot into the door into that space, in whatever function maybe you're interested in doing, because you can have some domain knowledge that will transfer over. And then you can eventually rotate, okay, well, now I'm in a health tech company, got a PM job. Now I have PM experience. Now I can apply to, Google or Amazon or another company. Like figure out the right logical stepping stones where you're not trying to do 4 things at once, but maybe 1 or 2 things at a time. And it'll be simpler and easier for you to tell the story about how you got from point A to point B. And then I would also say, a lot of you are looking at which business school to go to and trying to make that decision. When you're looking at the options ahead of you, think about the schools that offer you those building blocks and those stepping stones. And one of the big reasons why I went to Tepper was because of that intersectionality at Carnegie Mellon for, the technology at the School of Engineering and Computer Science, the business school, the design school, and kind of the collaboration across those programs, which is very unique for a lot of universities. And so like, think about not only just the business school, what the business school offers, but what the university offers and that alumni network, because especially within the technology sector, Carnegie Mellon as a brand carries a lot of weight. And so it's something that can also just help you to, start those one-off conversations I talked about in the beginning, where you can reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm also a CMU alum, would love to learn about what you're doing at company X, or how you got into your role, doing law at company, whatever. Like there's ways that you can convey those stepping stones and leverage that network that I think, CMU has definitely a leg up on a lot of other universities. With Amazon in particular, like we have a huge alumni network. I mean, heck, the CFO of the company is a Tepper alum. So we have a big, you have 2 people on this call going to Amazon. There's always someone who's willing to talk to you. So I would say, think about the stepping stones, what you can get out of school, and then what are the schools that are going to put you on that right path. And it should be Tepper. There goes my plug.
Aaron did a much better job marketing the school than I did.
I had to wrap it up,
It was great. Fantastic job.
Yes, it was great advice from you both. Thank you again so much for your time tonight. And thank you to all of our participants for joining us for this Alumni Ask Me Anything career event today. I'm going to wrap things up here.